This is now the top of round 4. I am Savage Patch Kid. I am joined by the very intelligent and well-spoken Supernova over here. Am I angling the right way? I am. Look at that. How's it going, Supernova?
It's going all right, you know. See, I've been expecting a little bit of this tournament myself, and I've been a little surprised by the bit of Annihilates that have been popping up since like the beginning of Series 2, because I always thought of a Pokemon like Annihilate to be one of the more nicher picks, because Defiant is one of the more better abilities in the metagame. Why else do we see Gambit right here? But also, Mouse Annihilate, it's still proven to be powerful even with all these Paradox Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things that I expected to kind of start to slowly ebb off of the wagon of popular meta usage, but I've been proven wrong. I'm actually been very, very surprised by the number of that we're still seeing. Because I expected once Iron Hands was introduced into the meta, I expected Annihilate to just almost go away completely. But there's obviously team combinations, especially when you've got it next to Mousehold, that proves to still be effective. Looks like we're about to just jump right into the top of round 4 now. We'll be watching from Hendez. This is Hendez versus IceBergVGC. Super excited to see how this team is going to shake out. We see from Hendez's team preview, and he's bringing the very, very threatening offensive force of Roaring Moon, Great Tusk, and Iron Bundle. The sort of very, very solid offensive 3 Paradox options that we've been seeing a lot of this meta. And a very, very effective Amoonguss support in the back. So let's see what happens here.
Yeah, I'm looking at Hendez's team right now. A lot of interesting stuff on his team. You got the Great Tusk for the great offensive support with a Headlong Rush and Close Combat. Also, the Roaring Moon, the perfect combination of Flying Terror with Acrobatics. But also, something to note about this Iron Bundle that Hendez has, it has Covert Cloak, meaning it probably doesn't want to take secondary effects like throws from a Fake Out, sometimes from a Salt Cure, even Snarl. The Iron Bundle could prove to be very handy with that Covert Cloak right now for Hendez.
We see a Dragon leading on both sides with Dragonite and Great Tusk going off of IceBergVGC's side of the field, with Hendez bringing out the Roaring Moon. Please don't, I will miss. Sorry, processing nicknames. The Roaring Moon and the Iron Bundle. Interesting to point out about the Iron Bundle, I think it's avoiding fake outs is one of the biggest things you got to worry about with that Pokemon. So yeah, I think that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, an interesting choice right here, because Great Tusk, it can threaten a lot of things for super effective damage right here, but the only thing that's doing super effective is with that Close Combat, but one of these 2 Pokemon could just Terrasilize away from it, because Close Combat, even though it might be might be super effective against both these Pokemon, one of these Pokemon could Terrasilize away from it, especially with Roaring Moon. And speaking of which, we do have a Roaring Moon Terra.
Yes, the Roaring Moon Terra going into the Flying type, probably setting up that potential Acrobatics high offense now that it's already used its booster energy, and it does do that double damage out of that move. But we see the Terrestrialization coming out of Iceberg's side as well, going into the Dragonite. Setting up some equally offensive flying type damage there as well, and also just giving it that further additional stab boost from those flying type moves.
The Iron Bundle going for the Protect, doesn't want to take any damage from this Dragonite or this Great Tusk incoming here. Protect also coming out from the Great Tusk as well. Probably does fear the Freeze Dry or Hydro Pump, threatening a one-hit knockout on it. And here comes the Acrobatics from the Roaring Moon. Like, it's going to hit that Dragonite. It's not multi-scale. It's going to be taking a good amount of damage there.
That's so much damage. And coming off with the Terra Blast outside, right back in response into the Roaring Moon, doing a significant chunk of damage, but not removing it from the field.
And that's an interesting thing that's been rising with popularity. Terra Flying Dragonite, I guess like that's just a thing with Dragonite, where it's like you don't want to use like Aerial Ace or what's the other move? Wing Attack for your flying stats. So Terra Blast is your next best option. And Terra Flying is still not a bad Terra type, even though you do lose out on damage from Extreme Speed if you were Terra Normal. But then again, this Dragonite does put the Roaring Moon in range of a potential Extreme Speed here.
Yeah, and we do see this Dragonite. We know it has the Assault Vest on it, so it's eschewing things like Choice Band. So it's really not maximizing that extreme speed damage, like you said, which is something that was so popular towards the beginning of this meta, but seems to be something people are gradually moving away from. We do see the Roaring Moon go back into Henz's side in exchange for the Amoonguss, setting up some defensive support for that Iron Bundle on his side of the field. And the Extreme Speed going off into the Amoonguss as well, doing not a lot of damage at all. In the Close Combat going into the Iron Bundle, taking it all the way down to 0. That Covert Cloak really, really seeming like an expensive choice in lieu of something like maybe Focus Sash in this situation.
Yeah, but also important enough from Hendez' side, he tried going for a double protect there with the Iron Bundle, probably wanting to, avoid that close combat right there from the Great Tusk, but it doesn't get it, unfortunately. And now Hendez is down a very important Pokemon because now he has less things that threaten the Great Tusk for super effective damage.
You're absolutely right. The Great Tusk proving to be a very, very imposing object to have to work around now. It's really, really interesting to see. We do see a Roaring Moon come back out onto this side of the field. It has lost those photosynthesis boosts, but it still maintains the acrobatic damage bonus and the terrestrialization boost. The extreme speed going into that Roaring Moon, though, is going to very quickly remove it from the field, taking it off to just, unfortunately, just not a lot of roar out of that particular Roaring Moon this match.
Let's see what the Great Tusk goes for. And yes, that's very important to note. Extreme Speed has more priority than Rage Powder. That's what I wanted to point out earlier. As the Headlong Rush is going to go into the Amoonguss, it's going to live on 40 HP and drop Race Defense even further.
Yeah, we do see the Great Tusk taking those stat drops, but Amoonguss barely being able to chuck that out, but the Citrus Berry restoring a really decent chunk of HP. But offensively, Hendez seems to have like a lot of offensive ground to cover here.
Yes, it is, and Rage Powder is not going to be helpful against this Dragonite here, as we now know that Extreme Speed has more priority than Rage Powder is, so no redirection in sight. However, I do kind of wonder if Hendez can make this comeback here with his Focus Sash Great Tusk here, because another thing is, like, this Great Tusk for Iceberg does have Earthquake, so he can threaten the damage, so who knows how much damage that Iceberg's Great Tusk can handle, even though it's -2 in both defenses.
We see the Headlong Rush coming into the Amoonguss, taking it off the field. So it's now we have a Great Tusk and a Dream. I agree that there is a potential chance for some offensive recovery here, but it's definitely on the back foot. The Ice Spinner going into the Dragonite, taking it off the field as well in a solid 1-for-1 trade on this turn. But Hendez does seem to have a lot of ground to cover here.
Yeah, he does have a lot of ground to cover, especially if it's Dondozo Tatsugiri in the back for Iceberg here. And another thing to note here, these Great Tusks, even though Iceberg now has a -3, I think it's done all that they had to do, because it's hitting here comfortably, especially with Talon Plane coming in for Iceberg. Gale Wings, Tailwind could potentially get into speed boost that he needs, or even a Brave Bird, and we see Hendez is going to throw into forfeit.
Yeah, the Great Tusk on Hendez's side was definitely in a bit of a almost an unescapable situation, especially with the threat of Gale Wings coming off of that Talon Frame right off the field. That takes a lot of damage. I mean, it would have been able to survive the one hit from something, because we know we saw the Focus Sash on Great Tusk. But you really got to wonder if maybe just... I'm interested to see what kind of adaptations that we're going to see from Hendez's side of the field here, knowing that we didn't even see Dondozo brought to the first match.
Yeah, and also another thing, I didn't know what the Designer Bundle could have been able to do, because it was just stuck protecting in front of a Great Tusk, even though it had the potential to go for the Freeze Dry. And now that I'm looking back on it, I'm not sure the Double Protect was even a play in the first place. Extreme Speed does not threaten a one-hit knockout on the Iron Bundle. And then Icy Wind's still just great support, because it will get your Pokemon the odd speed. You can probably get it in Amoonguss for free. And I'm just wondering if his Iron Bundle could do anything differently, or if he could have preserved it any further than what he tried to do with that Double Protect there.
Yeah, it's a really risky gamble when you take the Focus Sash off the Iron Bundle. I've personally never run Iron Bundle without it, just because of how frail it can be, especially when you end up winding up against something like a Great Tusk, or something that can do like a super effective stab close combat, because that is a very, very frightening thing for that tiny, tiny little bird.
And that's another thing There's another thing that I had to know about this Iron Bundle, because all the Iron Bundles that I ever seen always ordering either a choice item, typically the choice specs, Focus Sash, or the Booster Energy, which the Booster Energy does provide the great speed support, like to potentially imitate a Regieleki or something like that. But you're still playing the same game as you normally would, to a comparison that I'll make here to Kartana, where it's very potent on the offense, but especially defensive, it's not its greatest.
It's really not, and that's to your point, that is sort of the typical direction I see Iron Bundle taken, is you have to make it just a very, very fast shooting glass cannon. It does a lot of damage very, very quickly, but so getting the Focus Sash is frequently your only chance, especially if you're doubled into, your only chance on the turn one to do any damage with Iron Bundle at all, should you lead with it. I'd be interested to see if maybe he shifts keeping Iron Bundle to the back on this second turn to maybe preserve some of that offensive output later in the match. Especially since a lot of your offensive focus seemed to really go away really quickly in that turn 1.
Yeah, because Hendez's team really, its offensive focus is definitely there with the stuff like the Goldango Roaring Moon, but not having a Pokemon like a Mungus or Iron Bundle out there to support may not be proven to be beneficial. And Iceberg can definitely throw a 180 by going for Dondozo Tatsukiri, because the only thing that Hendez has to threaten that is really that Iron Bundle and maybe the Arcanine.
Yeah, the Iron Bundle and the Freeze Dry, that carries a lot of mileage as far as your coverage on Hendez's team goes. So you have to, I think, careful execution is very important. You see Goldango Talonflame leading on Iceberg's side of the field this match, and then with the same Roaring Moon and Iron Bundle lead on Hendez's side. Interesting to see what maybe adjustments he has in the back, or how he'll execute this turn differently, just to make sure the same thing doesn't happen.
Okay, so the photosynthesis there from the Roaring Moon is going to clear the attack boost, which actually might be a bad thing right now for Hendez, because that really does threaten the Talonflame going for the Tailwind and the Goldango going for a Make It Rain, because both these Pokemon can take a lot of damage from Life Orb, Terra Steel, Make It Rain from the Goldango. Likely will one-shot the Iron Bundle. Maybe he'll get a double knockout here too.
Yeah, we do see Iceberg's Goldango is we do see that it is running Choice Specs, so that extra damage that it's going to do if it does Terastallize on this turn is something definitely Hendez is going to need to worry about here.
We do see a Terastallization coming out first.
Oh yeah, Iceberg throwing this Terastallization onto the Goldango, going for that Steel type, probably shooting for the maximum Make It Rain damage that it can.
Remember, this Iron Bundle's not Focus Sash.
Iron Bundle is not Focus Sash, so it goes for the Protect on this first turn to preserve itself through this turn 1. And the Tailwind coming off of the Talonflame, just as predicted. Really putting the Roaring Moon in a trickier position when it comes to prioritizing just how much damage it's going to do in this match.
Will it take the one shot?
Is it one shot? It is not shot, but it is very, very close. A really, really large amount of damage going to that Roaring Moon with that Terastallization boost, but also setting up a Tailwind, neutralizing the Talonflames. So a whole moot change in speed priority here.
Yeah, the speed tiers are now going to be evened out here, so both of Hendez's Pokemon will be able to outspeed the Goldango, but I kind of do see the Goldango staying in unless he really thinks that special attack drop is going to matter on both Pokemon, because I still think with the Choice Specs and the special attack drop, Make It Rain will still get the one-shot on Iron Bundle. I just don't know what Hendez can do here to threaten the knockout onto the Goldango here, and Roaring Moon rightfully switches out.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Hendez is very... in the... Oh, we do see the Arcanine coming out on its side of the field. The Intimidate going into the Talonflame, into the Goldango. Goldango's never going to be bothered by an Intimidate. But the Brave Bird coming out of the Talonflame into the Arcanine, doing a small chunk of damage. I'm not going to say a negligible amount. Oh, but the Hydro Pump going into the Talonflame, and when it hits, and we're always happy when it does. Removing Talonflame from the field, removing potentially a lot of the off support that Talonflame is capable of doing in this meta. Yeah. And because no one being able to prevent any sort of future taunts or Will-O-Wisp, especially knowing that Hendez has Amoonguss on its side of the field, can be really, really important.
Yeah, as we do see that Make It Rain is going to be able to knock out the Iron Bundle there, even though it is a -1 special attack. That's just how powerful it is right now for Iceberg. And here comes the Great Tusk coming in for Hendez.
Yeah, we do see Great Tusk, aka Mid Tusk in this case, gracing Hendez's side of the field.
There's the Dragonite.
And Dragonite coming out next to the Goldango. We've got a full health Terastallized Goldango and a full health Dragonite on Iceberg's side of the field. A really daunting pair for anyone to go against.
Something to know from Iceberg is that he already Terastallized the Goldango, so Terra Blast is no longer an option for the Dragonite, but Extreme Speed can still do a lot of damage, especially with that Assault Vest taking a lot of hits for granted from the special side. Even Ice Spinner can even threaten the Great Tusk here, as well as stopping Tantrum on this Arcanine.
Yeah, this Arcanine could potentially really turn things around here. But we do see the Flare Blitz going into the Goldango, doing a very, very large amount of damage, but not going for that one-hit knockout. And the Ice Spinner going into the Dragonite, that 4 times effective damage, definitely going for the one-hit knockout. really just immediately dismissing what could have been a very, very scary threat on Iceberg's side of the field. But the Make It Rain coming in from the Gold Dingo is enough to take out the Arcanine, but the Great Tusk is able to tough it out, even without going down to its Focus Sash.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate there that Iceberg was missing the multi-skill there. That's the difference between inner focus and multi-skill, ladies and gentlemen. You kind of needed a multi-skill to potentially live that Ice Spinner, but even so, that'll make it rain from the Gold Dingo, doing massive damage to the Great Tusk. Depending on what Iceberg has in the back, because this Gold Dingo can no longer reset his special attack drops, it could potentially still be an even game.
Yeah, and we do know this Gold Dingo may have choice specs, but it does not have any way of mitigating that special attack drop now, and that's just going to continue to build. So it is locked into a move that is going to have diminishing returns for the rest of this match. But we do see that on Hendez's side of the field, both of his mons are really, really low HP. So it's still a really, really, really sharp, narrow edge between being able to maybe survive one more of those as Great Tusk here.
Yes, and also something to point out, Hendez does not yet use his Terrestrialization, so he could maybe bait out a ground type attack. It's like Headlong Rush can still take the guaranteed knockout or even a close combat from this range. I know Iceberg's still threatening a lot of damage even though both tailwinds are gone. I just don't know who has the speed advantage right now, but Roaring Moon definitely has to take something out before he could potentially lose the game here. And here is the Terrestrialization from Hendez.
Yeah, Hendez taking the chance to terrestrialize on the Roaring Moon, hoping to maybe capitalize on what remaining time it has left on his side of the field with such low HP. But with that, it's going to be a very, very scary amount of damage from that acrobatics if that's what Hendez chose to do here. No, instead we see a Throat Chop go into the Gold Dingo, preventing that spread damage, knowing that at least this Great Tusk is going to last for another turn, and maybe being just the exact amount of pivot that needed in order to maybe start to reclaim this match.
That Earthquake is so unfortunate there because it would have broken the Focus Sash from the Great Tusk, but also the Flying Translation coming in clutch right now for Hendez. He now threatens a one-hit knockout by a combination of Acrobatics and Ice Spinner, and this could be going to Game 3.
This could very easily go to a Game 3. We see the Acrobatics going into the Great Tusk. Oh, taking it down to less than 25% of its HP in a close combat being returned into the Roaring Moon. Will this Great Tusk pick it up for Hendez?
With a critical hit on top of that.
Very, very likely.
With those defense drops, it definitely will go down to this Ice Spinner, and especially because of this Focus Sash being broken there.
Yeah, the break of the Focus Sash. Oh, there we do see this Ice Spinner wrapping it up here for Hendez. We get a Game 3. How exciting! We love a Game 3.
Yeah, very exciting here, and you know, I kind of do want to point back out to the Gold Angle right there for Iceberg. I don't know if he thought that the Make It Rain was going to do a lot of the work here, but you know, it did work for the game, for the momentum that he needed with that Tailwind, like Talonflame, but down the line, he was just struggling to get those Make It Rains to pull out as much damage as he can because he was losing power momentarily. And when the moment that both Talonflame and Dragonite went down, when Gold Dingo had opportunities to swap in and swap out to reset those special defense drops, special attack drops, he just lost out on a lot of damage and potentially maybe lost the game for it.
Yeah, you definitely seeing how the risk of inner focus is unfortunately did not pay off in this case. Not having that multi-scale defense boost may have been the only chance that Dragonite had of surviving that one-hit shot from the Ice Spinner, because with that 4x weakness especially. And I don't think anybody was expecting, or at least I don't think maybe Iceberg was expecting that Dragonite to go down as fast as it did, because to your point, like you said, not being able to rotate out that Gold Dingo and locking yourself in, and anytime you lock yourself into a move with choice specs that's going to cause those stat drops, you have to have some way of being able to eventually offset with either Nasty Paw or a reset, and unfortunately just wasn't able to.
Yeah, and also another unfortunate thing because of the Ice Spinner, Iceberg expended that Terrestrialization early on that Gold Dingo, wanting to get a double knockout, which we now know that Make It Rain knock out Roaring Moon from that range. And I'm starting to wonder, now that you know that, are you better off Terrestrializing that Dragonite in case you run into that Ice Spinner problem again?
Exactly. You at least going to mitigate some of that damage that you took. And being able to utilize Terra Blast may be the better offensive option here, especially knowing that Hendez does have a Mungus in the back. and that's good. That's could be a really easily solid solution to that. But not having, not bringing Amoonguss and sort of kind of upset that offensive viability there.
Yeah, and again, Hendez led both Iron Bundle and the Roaring Moon both times, and it basically scared off both the Dondozo and the Tatsugiri. I'm still wondering if Iceberg's gonna throw it in, but the way that it looks like from this set going forward, I don't think he's gonna bring the combination or either one.
Yeah, well, we just finished team previews here. We're going to see how, what adaptations, if any, are made on this opening match. In this very, very nail biter of a game 3. I mean, both of these games have come insanely close.
They did come insanely close. Came down to a couple of Terrestrialization mind games there too.
Absolutely. We do see Iceberg opening up with the Gold Dingo Talonflame lead, with Hendez choosing to stick with the Iron Bundle Roaring Moon combination here. We're having an exact same repeat of the previous match. So interested to see if what choices are going to be made differently here, and what exactly we might see out of this Iron Bundle.
I have a very good hunch here that I think Iceberg, I don't call me on this one, but I think he's going to call out the Iron Bundle potentially protecting, and instead of going for the Tailwind with the Talonflame, I think he's going to go for the Will-O-Wisp there, because if he knows the Iron Bundle is just going to protect, you might as well just throw out the Make It Rain. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to... I mean, you likely will die to the Throat Chop, but if you get the Will-O-Wisp pop, it might be a valuable trade long term.
Yeah, being able to maybe offset some of the damage that this Roaring Moon is capable of putting out, especially when you have Will-O-Wisp on your side of the field, might be the option Iceberg can take here, especially since we can always have a one Tailwind neutralize the other in this situation. We do see the Terrestrialization going into the Gold Dingo on Iceberg's side of the field, continuing to lean into the Steel-type Make It Rain damage. If it goes to the Make It Rain, locking itself in with those choice specs. So we'll see if maybe we'll have a better pivot game here out of Iceberg. See if that makes any difference. We've got Taunt coming in onto the Roaring Moon. A very, very interesting choice. Hopefully, maybe upsetting the Tailwind use on Hendez's side of the field. So no Tailwinds for anybody at the start of this game 3.
And we know for a fact this Gold Dingo will not knock out this Roaring Moon with this Make It Rain unless it's a critical hit.
It's a critical hit! You spoke it into existence! The curse of VGC! Oh my goodness. Losing Roaring Moon on turn 1 to a critical hit. Man, it's always a little bit disheartening when you at some of your best offensive pressure. Not to say that Hendez has that in short supply, but when your reliable lead is taken out on the first turn, that always hurts a little bit extra, especially when it's a critical hit.
I don't even think the critical hit mattered in the first place, because first of all, I knew that the Iron Bundle was going to be protecting there, because it protected the first two games it was on there in the field, as we were going to see this Arcanine come in here, bringing the Intimidate onto the Talonflame and the Gold Dingo. But also, even if that Make It Rain didn't get the knockout there, Brave with the Priority Gale Wings would have for sure got that knockout.
That's true. I thought it was a really interesting choice to. I don't think anybody expected the critical hit to do all of that damage there. Otherwise, why taunt? Or yes, I maybe mixed up that sentence. But Talonflame is going a different route here on this match. Maybe what it needs to do. The Will-O-Wisp option on having the Will-O-Wisp option on Talonflame isn't really doing a whole lot here right now for Iceberg. But if we have Great Tusk in the back, or if we've got any other Gold Dingo's physical attackers, that's really the only thing it's good for now.
Yeah, we're going to see the Iron Bundle swap out here. I'm expecting this Talonflame to go for the Tailwind here this turn, just to get the speed control, as we do see Hendez bring in this Great Tusk, and there is the Tailwind. He's going to get the speed control for the rest of the game with the Roaring Moon knocked out.
Yeah, this is definitely a match where Hendez is going to have to just figure out how to know, and work around knowing you're going to be going last on both cases here. We do see it's his Great Tusk does manage to survive, and a Snarl going into the Talonflame in the Gold Dingo, really, really hoping to mitigate as much of that Make It Rain damage as quickly as possible.
Yeah, speaking of mitigating this damage as possible, I think this Gold Dingo might not get another Make It Rain off this turn, because even though it does live a Flare Blitz from its Arcanine, it's taking too much special attack drops that it may not do enough damage to even threaten an Arcanine. So I expect it to switch out this turn and potentially the Talonflame is going to go for that Brave Bird to clear the Great Tusk before it does anything.
Yeah, I completely agree. Instead, we see the Talonflame switching out. Talonflame being replaced by the Dragonite here.
No, it is Dragonite.
Yeah, and Great Tusk going for the Protect on Hendez's side of the field. Trying to endure as much as that make it rain damage as possible, but the amount of damage that attack is going to do is just going to be lower and lower and lower. Not switching it out, I think, was a very interesting choice here.
Very interesting. Here's what's coming in from the Arcanine. Definitely going to live that one without a critical hit, but it's going to be a very dangerous range there for a potential priority move.
Yeah, the HP bars on Hendez's side of the field are a bit of a concern at this point, but we saw him come back from a very similar situation in the previous game, so something to be said for.
I actually wonder if Extreme Speed's enough to knock out the Arcanine from this range from this Dragonite.
I don't think we've. Oh, disconnect on stream.
Oh no. Who disconnected there? This is the problem.
Oh my goodness. Caught in 4K. All right. Well,
it looks like Iceberg might have disconnected unless we get an official word here. A little unfortunate there, but I think Iceberg was in an advantageous position because something like that Extreme Speed was threatening a knockout on both the Great Tusk and the Arcanine, and I just don't see a way that Hendez was actually going to escape that game.
Yeah, that was. I mean, as optimistic as we could be, seeing as how he was able to make such a recovery in the second game. He was definitely, I think, in a trickier situation in losing that Roaring Moon so fast in that game 3. He wasn't able to establish the same kind of pace under which he would have won game 2. So I think it was definitely something that was an increasingly difficult situation for him to escape from. Arcanine, I feel, was maybe seeing. It was not Arcanine's best day, I feel like, on Hendez's side of the field. I feel like it just wasn't able to really like hold the offensive mileage that we usually see out of an Arcanine. And Intimidate was not really doing much against Iceberg's team. They got to get bringing.